curious with everyone. We were really curious with everyone just about maybe how many of you are incorporating plants into your diet or trying to, and maybe what's your favorite vegetable to incorporate. So Becca, do you want to pull up that poll? Okay, tell us, what is your favorite vegetable to incorporate into your recipes? Okay, we look like we're getting some clear winners here. So we have 8% say tomatoes, 8% peppers, 33% spinach, 38% broccoli. Nobody likes Brussels sprouts, including me. Cauliflower, 8%, and then other 4%. So some good feedback there. Spinach is one of those things I always can throw into anything, and I really enjoyed that as well. So thank you for sharing your feedback. And so we're going to get started. I know a lot of you are here because you were really interested. We've been asked for many years, could we do something related to healthy eating and a cooking demo? And so we're very excited that we can do that today. So I'm going to introduce our final speaker. This is Kathy Levin, has been a registered dietitian for over 30 years. She's a certified diabetes educator and is board certified in lifestyle medicine. She left her job of 25 years at a healthcare institution to start her own private practice called Nutritiously Simple. She was asked to be a nutrition element specialist in the Ornish Lifestyle Medicine program, where the results she saw with participants changed how she worked with her clients and how she lives her life. She focuses on the 6 pillars of health, happiness, and healing, and her recipes for success, nutrition and lifestyle coaching program: eating well, moving more, stress less, connecting with others, sleep well, and avoiding risky substances. She uses plant-based Simply Cooking Club, where the goal is to get more plants into people's plates. So I'm very excited to have Kathy here with us today, and joining her, you can kind of see her there, is Leah, her daughter, and Leah is our events coordinator. She's working on our walk and our purple ball and our camp. And so we're glad that they're both here, and I'm going to turn it over to all of you.
All right, guys. Well, I'm so happy to be here today and have Leah with me in my house. I always like it when Leah comes home, number one. But I was going to say that it's always important when we look at things to know what our why is. And the why for why we feel like, or especially myself, is we have our own connection to lupus. Leah's mom, who was my sister-in-law, unfortunately passed away from lupus when Leah was only 8 years old. And so it's always been important to me. My younger daughter actually has been told that she has brewing lupus. And so it's just very important to me, that and just chronic disease and lifestyle medicine kind of go hand in hand. So let me share my screen. We're off. Kathy's not. Oh no. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you and see your screen.
Okay. Could you hear me at all before?
Yes. Okay, I heard you the whole time.
I was like, what is going on there? Okay.
You're good.
Great. So what I'm going to do today is just kind of go through with you the basics of lifestyle medicine. Dr. Kerr, she mentioned some of those things, and I believe the other doctor did as well, because they're not uncommon. There are things that you might not always think of as being just as important as the medicine that you take. So hold on one second. There we go. So you can see that there I am. I'm also a diabetes educator. I'm board certified in lifestyle medicine. I worked in an Ornish lifestyle medicine program prior to the pandemic. Unfortunately, it was the only lifestyle medicine program, or Dr. Ornish program, in the Midwest at the time. And then when the pandemic came, unfortunately it closed and it never reopened. But the good news is they're getting ready to do a virtual program where anybody from across the country can enroll in that. That program is aimed at people with heart disease, and I know that kind of goes hand in hand oftentimes with for people with lupus as well. So I'm excited that I get to be part of that too. So the why does it matter? What is this whole lifestyle medicine thing all about? So the World Health Organization actually says that about 80% of heart disease, diabetes, and about 40% of some cancers can be prevented. So we're kind of shifting as we're I would say over the past 5 years, I've really seen the shift into a prevention type of mode, but we can also make a difference in making, especially diabetes, go into remission. So if you have diabetes or pre-diabetes, and 1 out of 3 people do have pre-diabetes. So if you know, it's important to know your numbers, just like it's important to know your kidney numbers. That glucose is huge. Plus it also kind of factors into kidney disease as well. So these are your 6 pillars. And like I said, Dr. Kerr kind of talked about some of these things. So eating well, moving more, she talked about the exercise piece, stressing less, connecting with other people. So like even showing up to something like this today is connecting with other people, having a support group. We're going to talk about it very briefly again. Dr. Kerr also talked about the sleeping well. Sleep is huge. If we don't get adequate sleep, our cortisol levels up, and so is the inflammation. And then avoiding risky substances, which are like excess alcohol, smoking, and the like, right? Each one of those things, and that's the thing I always want to emphasize, each one of those 6 pillars is equally important. So eating well is no more important than moving more. That's no important than stressing less. So all of those things kind of go together as a pie. So it's always important to remember that all of them count at the end of the day. And as they always said in Ornish, the one that you struggle with the most is probably the one that you need to work on. So I'm just going to go through very quickly on these so we can get to the cooking demo. So my whole goal always is, as was shared in the beginning, to get more plants on people's plates, because at the end of the day, even if you are a meat eater, the more vegetables and grains and things like that you get in, you're getting those good nutritious things with vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, fiber is so important. So in lifestyle medicine, it's a plant-forward approach. Does that mean you have to be 100% plant-based? No, you do you work. I always say you have to go with what works for you, but maybe, and I will give you some suggestions, even having a meatless Monday, for example, can make a big difference. Using whole foods more often than processed foods. So things like fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, whole grains, things like oatmeal or quinoa, or some of those other types of whole grains, whole grain bread, crackers, cereal, rice, noodles. Choosing more fiber. The average American only gets about 10 to 12 grams of fiber in. We want you to get in, for ladies, it's at least 25, and for men, it's at least 38. Most people are at least half that or less. So just think about that. Get in fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, whole grains. You're going to get your fiber in that way too. If you include some things like legumes in there too, you'll get even more fiber. So we want to look for the most nutrient dense foods. So this doesn't matter if you have lupus or not. These are things that we all need to be doing just to make ourselves overall healthier and also prevent disease, right? And just live a healthier life at the end of the day. The one thing that we know too is if we decrease added sugars and added fats, it decreases the inflammation. I always say, of the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, that I always envision people with inflammation, and anybody that lives with a chronic disease is chronically inflamed. It's like putting that fire hose out on you. So if you choose and only pick one thing to work on at a time in one pillar, don't try to do all 6 at one time, or it will become overwhelming as well. Just to throw a couple statistics out about plant-based eating, which was kind of interesting. So this was in the heat of COVID. So like in 2020, they gathered the numbers and they found that 59 to 73%, and it varied depending on how plant-based the people were. So the people that might typically identify as vegan were that 73%. But you had this huge decrease in the odds of moderate to severe COVID. And again, it's because you're getting all those phytonutrients and all the good stuff that you can get in vegetables, fruits, and whole grains. And then for the ladies in the room, a study came out last year that the people that ate plant-based had 84% less symptoms for menopause, moderate to severe. And I think that's huge. So all of these things go together. The one thing we know is there's no negative side effect from eating a plant-based diet. I did go and pull, this was just from January of this year, and I think it's important to say that a lot of research needs to be done when it comes to lupus. If you look up lupus and plant-based, there is not very much research out there, but what they did find is they took all these different studies and they found that the people that ate a plant-based diet had less, or reported, let's say, had less symptoms. So some of those things, like they just felt overall better at the end of the day. And the whole point of the study, or what they got out of it, is more research needs to be done. Again, though, if you have like other comorbid conditions, like you have diabetes or heart disease or high blood pressure or high cholesterol, at the end of the day, that's going to help with these as well. Then moving more, and Dr. Kerr talked about this too, the goal is, and this is the goal, if you're not moving at all, don't use this number, but 150 minutes of moderate physical activity. So let's say if you're just starting out, it could be 5 minutes a couple times a day, and it might take a few months to get to 30 minutes, and that's okay. How do you know you're at moderate physical activity? It's this thing they call the talk test. So where, say you're walking along and you can talk, but you couldn't sing. If you were able, I always laugh and say, I envision a world where everyone's walking along trying to sing. And then at least 2 days of resistance, which could be weights. It doesn't have to be. It could be using resistance bands. It could be using, I always say yoga, Pilates, things like that. So just trying to be more active, finding things that are joyful movement. I have clients where what they do is they just turn on music and dance in between. Like if I had a lady that she was a professor, and in between teaching classes, because she didn't like to walk, she would just turn on music and dance around in between those classes, and she would get her 30 minutes in that way. Yeah, here we're just talking about the same kind of thing. So in terms of specifically with lupus, this came off of one of the studies that's listed on the Heartland Lupus site. So it talked about how with lupus in particular, it strengthens parts of your body that may be affected by lupus. So your heart and lungs. I always say anybody of any age, if you are able to walk, because it will strengthen your heart and lungs, which gives you more stamina to do the activities of daily life and things like that. Strengthening your bones, helping with your joints and things like that as well. Decreasing inflammation, like all those other pillars too. And if you're on steroids, right, sometimes it's a battle to keep the weight down. And so one thing you want to do is just try to be active to keep that down as well. And also it helps, as Dr. Kerr also said too, it helps up here, right? So that when we move our bodies, it releases those nice endorphins and we just feel better at the end of the day. And then stressing last. So I always would say in Ornish, so they would have 4 of the 6 components as separate components. And we had a stress management session and also a group support, because I think that is so important to find those people that are on the similar journey as you, which we'll talk about on the next slide. But the stress management and group support were in a hallway and there was a door that we closed. And I always said the magic of our program happened behind the door, because a lot of people just don't deal with their stress. And I always say it becomes like a bottle that you're shaking up. And if you don't let the cork out, it's just going to cause a lot of problems for you physically as well as emotionally. So recognizing, right, the signals, making sure that you tune into it. I always tell my clients, the biggest thing is just first recognizing it. If you can see, oh, I'm starting to have a bad day and this is what I'm doing because of it, and you can see that there's different ways also to cope with it healthfully. But if you notice it first, before you get to the headache, before you have this I just taught a class on stress yesterday, and the lady was saying how she feels it in her shoulders. And we just talked about doing simple things like even tightening your fists and then releasing it, and tightening and releasing it. So there's lots of different ways you can cope with it. Meditation, I'm a giant fan of meditation. I love the app Insight Timer. It's great because you can pick the number of minutes and why you need to meditate. Simply breathing, taking a few breaths in and out when you're in the middle of that moment when you feel stressed out. Counting to 20 just to kind of give yourself a moment to center. It's all about centering. It could be reading, it could be doing something creative like painting or writing or drawing, or listening to music. For a lot of people, music really relaxes them and things like that. And then just trying to challenge some of those negative thoughts. I have a friend who is a cognitive behavioral therapist, and she always says, our brain wants to keep us safe. And the way it does that is by keeping us in the same place. So sometimes that's where some of that stuff comes from too. Connecting with others. And you can see on this slide. So it could be that you participate in a support group for other people with lupus. It could be that you volunteer. It could be that you go work with animals, whatever it is. But connecting with other people, the research really shows that the people that are more isolated struggle more, and their health suffers because of that as well. And then the sleep. I could go on and on about sleep. So the big thing is, first of all, at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep. So what I always tell people, if you have like a smartwatch, like have an Apple Watch, you might have a Fitbit, wear it at night, see what your average is for 3 days. And then you know whether or not, am I getting sound sleep? Am I just kind of restless in my sleep? Having a bedtime, I always tell people it's just like you're a little kid. You want have a bedtime, set a bedtime for yourself. Think of cool, dark, quiet. My younger daughter, when she went to college, lived in a dorm, not in a dorm, in a, what am I trying to say? Thank you, sorority house. And they actually had what they called the dormers, which was up in the attic. And it was mandatory that it was cool, dark, and quiet in there. So they knew what was going on. They knew that students were stressed out and things like that. Increasing your daytime exposure to sunlight. Sometimes things get a little wonky if you're not out in the sun and your body doesn't know when to make melatonin or not. And so that can make a difference. Probably the biggest thing that I see on a constant basis is the whole thing with blue light. So it could be your phone. It could be taking a tablet into the bedroom with you. It could be having a laptop or watching TV. Some people are much more acutely affected by it, and some people need up to 2 or 3 hours of no blue light before you go to sleep in order to sleep well. Abstaining from alcohol at least 3 hours before bedtime. Some people are very affected by that as well. And some people are more affected by caffeine or not. I'm one of those people that I could drink iced tea and go right to bed. Other people need to stop that early on in the afternoon. Otherwise, it will affect their sleep later on. Great. And then this avoiding of risky substances. The one we're really going to talk about is just alcohol in general for everyone, right? Avoiding excess alcohol, tobacco, and drugs. But the alcohol, so for people with lupus, you really have to look at the medications you're on to make sure they're not interacting. That's very important, and I list some of those on there. One thought you could have is make like a mocktail so that you're not having the alcohol, but you're having the fun drink. And then the general guidelines for alcohol limits are 1 alcohol equivalent for women a day and 2 for men. And that means like 12 ounces of beer, 4 ounces of wine, a shot of hard liquor. And as I always say, you can't save them all up and have them on one day on the weekend. It's really made for that one day. And so now we're going to talk a little bit more about what our diets are like and why we need to make that change, right? So unfortunately, the acronym, first of all, is for the Standard American Diet is SAD, which I think is oftentimes appropriate, but it's essentially low in all the things we need and high in all the things we don't need, right? So it's not very nutrient dense. It has a lot of calories and fat. There's not much fiber. There's not those phytonutrients. Those only come from plant-based sources. There's a lot of antioxidants and phytonutrients and things like that. And what it's high in is every kind of fat, right? Calories, sodium, TMAO. So that is a chemical that is actually made in our GI tract when we consume a lot of meat or the yolks of eggs. And what it does is it it damages the lining of our coronary arteries all the way down to the little capillaries in our eyes. And so what we want to do is decrease things that increase TMAO. The non-esterified fatty acids and new 5-GC, which both of those also contribute to cancer. And then what does it do to our bodies? So it causes more inflammation, just like we said. The added sugar, the added fat. I was just reading something last week, and really the take home was more the added fat even than added sugar for people with diabetes, which was kind of a change in the way that they thought for a while. Endothelial dysfunction, that's what I was talking about, that little thin layer there. It can cause more insulin resistance, especially the added fat. What they found is that because the way we eat in the standard American diet is so high in fat, fried food, salt, what's happening is that fat is infiltrating into our livers, but also our muscle tissue. And that's where that insulin resistance is actually coming from. It can also promote kidney stones, the standard American diet. You can see on the right-hand side, it just talks about, in other words, all those chronic disease states like diabetes, heart disease, renal disease, all of the above. Now, just to kind of dip our toe into what is a plant-forward approach. So you can be anywhere on the spectrum. On the very first line, and you can see across the top, it says red meat and poultry, fish, eggs, or dairy. And what categories do the people that self-identify as those things are? So vegans don't eat any animal products at all. And generally speaking, they don't use any animal products. Oftentimes they're doing it for the environment or the animals more so even than a health reason, but sometimes it's all three of those. Those are the big three reasons generally. A lacto-vegetarian doesn't have red meat and poultry, fish, or eggs, but they may have dairy. An ovo would have wouldn't have any of those other things. It just, that person would have eggs. More often than not, I see lacto-ovo vegetarians. I probably would consider myself that. I don't really call myself anything. I just say I eat a plant-based diet. And then a pescatarian is someone that doesn't eat red meat or poultry, but may eat fish, may eat eggs, may eat dairy. And then the last group, which is what some of you may be, is a flexitarian. So what does that mean? It just means that more often than not, you're having sources that are plant-based, including your protein. It doesn't, so but you may still eat meat occasionally. So that's what that's all about. And so just in terms of plants and why are they better for you and all that, we kind of have talked about this as we've gone through, but decreasing inflammation, right? We decrease inflammation, we decrease chronic disease. They just kind of go hand in hand like that. It strengthens our immune system. You can see from that statistic, even from COVID, that it really did make a difference at the end of the day and continues to do that. It helps prevent chronic diseases, improves your brain, heart, and gut health. You will have a whole different, what they call microbiome, when you eat a plant-based diet versus eating a lot of meat. The issue is with the standard American diet, most people are not, it's not like they're having meat and then they're having a balanced plate with half their plate veggies and then whole grains and a quarter and then just a quarter of it in meat. Most of the time, it's a lot of meat and maybe little to no vegetables. And that's where we see that difference. In terms of brain health, there's some really astonishing research that they're doing right now with people with Alzheimer's, which is amazing, that it's actually been showing to kind of reverse the path of those people with Alzheimer's. It even increases your telomeres, which is what directs how we age. So if we can age more healthfully or live longer, it makes the telomeres a little bit longer. So, all right, eating the rainbow. So when you have, I always say diversity or variety are the key. Eating the rainbow. So eat all the colors of veggies and fruits, all of them. The more colors, the better, because there's different phytonutrients, vitamins, and minerals in all of those. Same thing with whole grains. Eat a huge variety, because the more diverse the things you are that you're eating, the better your microbiome, that good bacteria in your gut that leads to health, that leads to immunity and things like that are too. And then 3 things to add to your plate. I did send this little balance plate right there that looks just like that. So, and then also something on the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine. But if you look at this, and you can think of this whether you eat meat or not, right? The balanced plate is still the balanced plate. Half your plate is fruit or veggies, rainbow of colors. Quarter of it is going to be protein. So if you do eat meat, the leanest meat you can get, pull the skin off the chicken, use the highest, or I guess it would be lowest, percent of fat, like if you're doing ground meat or something like that too. But also throw in some plant-based proteins like legumes, like kidney beans, great northern beans, pintos, chickpeas, lentils, tofu, tempeh, all those things. And then whole grains. So that's where your whole grain bread, crackers, rice, cereal. So that's a quarter of the plate too. So just trying to aim, if you can get this 3/4 of your plate going, you've done a good job. So veggies, we talked about that, half your plate, at least 3 servings a day. A serving is like a cup raw, half cup cooked, because part of that shrinks down when we cook it. Fresh, frozen, or canned, they're all good. If you're going to use canned, I would drain and rinse them. Just because they're canned does not mean they're bad for you. There's going to be more fiber in fresh or frozen, but canned is still a vegetable at the end of the day. And then fruit, about 2 to 4 servings. Again, rainbow of colors. Fresh, frozen. If you use canned, just try to use the juice or water pack, or pour off the juice. And then half your plate, or not half your plate, half of your grains should be whole grains. We talked about those goals for fiber: 25 for women, 38 for men. But like I said, look on the label. You want at least 3 grams of fiber in a serving. So like if you're looking at bread, first of all, make sure it's for 1 slice, because sometimes the label will say 1, 2, or once I got tricked by one that said 3 slices. So if it's 2 slices, then it should be 6 grams and so on. You just have to kind of play with that a little bit. But trying to get more whole grains in more often will make a big difference at the end of the day. And then plant-based protein, which for some of you, that might be more of an uncommon thing, but just to kind of touch base, like I said, I listed the legumes, chickpeas, edamame, which are young green soybeans. I use those a lot in salads. You can even blenderize them and make a dip out of them. Powdered peanut butter or nut butter. If you use, and we're going to use that today, one of the reasons I use that with my clients is because then you don't have, it's been defatted, so the fat is gone. So then less increased risk for inflammation. Tofu and tempeh. Tempeh is just, they've taken a soybean and kind of chopped it up, and it's been fermented and it's pushed together in a, I should have had it pulled out so you guys could have seen it, because I have some in my fridge, but you can slice it, you could crumble it. It's a great meat alternative. One of my favorite things to use, legume pasta. I use that all the time. When you're in the grocery store, look in that section with pasta and look for the legume pasta, because you've got protein and you've got fiber. So now you've got win-win, because that also slows down the rate at which your food digests and absorbs, so you don't get hungry quite so fast. Quinoa's in there. It's got some protein, but I would not call that the best protein source. Veggie burgers or other meat substitutes. The challenge with some of the ones on the market right now is they're very high in fat. So please read the label for that as well. Using plant-based milks or yogurts or other non-dairy substitutes too. Those would all count in there. So just some general tips and tricks. Like I said, pick one thing to work on. If you're going to focus on what you're eating, it might be something as simple as, I'm going to add 1 vegetable at lunch 3 days a week. That's still a good goal. It's an achievable goal. It's something that you can do. Just trying to sneak the plants in wherever you can, using meatless Mondays. Maybe you just pick 1 day a week. So my mom, she's almost 89 years old, and through COVID, she was in one of my groups online. And so she, for the past, I would say it's been 2 years, she only eats meat once a day, which I'm like, if you can change at that age, you can change anytime. Planning and prepping meals is important too. Swapping out animal protein, like you can take some of your regular recipes and just swap it for a lot of times I'll use like veggie crumbles instead of using ground beef, things like that. So just trying it to add things wherever you can. We're going to look at next, we're going to do our little cooking demo. So I sent, and hopefully you guys got, a little recipe ebook. We're going to do 3 recipes today that are super simple and easy. One of them is one of Leah's favorites. I tried to get her to do it. She's making a face at me, but she won't help me put it together. But literally, you guys, I don't even know why it's a recipe. Is why I always joke. So let's jump into that part. So the first thing we're going to do is make this peanut PB&J, right? Overnight oats. Now, here's what I want to say. It doesn't have jam in it. It has fruit in it. So what we're going to do is kind of put that together. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing so you can see. Except where? Hold on. Up there. There we go. Oh, is there a way to pin my video? Maybe I can do it. Let me try.
I'm not sure.
Here.
Leah
Can
might know
everybody see
better
that
than us.
video? Can you see it big, Amy?
I only see you.
Okay, that's what I want. Perfect.
Yeah, you're good.
So the first thing we're going to do, and I'm going to just tilt my camera down so you can see as we put this together, right? We're going to make this overnight oats. So some of you may have had overnight oats and some of you may be saying, what in the world, right? Oh, so first what I want to do is this is powdered peanut butter, or PB2 is one name brand. You can go, Lee and I just went to Sam's last night and she got a giant container for like $9. But the only difference, all the nutrition is still the same, is it has the fat removed. So in order to rehydrate that, we're just going to pour a little water in. Now, what I don't recommend is making this up in big batches. Just make it up as you need it. I had a person in our Ornish program one time who did that, and then it kind of, I don't even know what I'm trying to say. It became not, what am I saying? It's like it wasn't emulsified anymore. Okay. All right. It's all stuck on my stirrer. I think I poured too much water in. Can you grab me the PB2? It's over there in that container. So I'm going to have Leah add a little bit more. I think I poured too much water in. Here, just take it over there and do it. Just do it. Okay. So we're going to, that will be the peanut butter part, and it's going to go in with our oats. So the next part we're going to do is the oats. Okay. So we're going to take the oats, which I think, let me see how much is over here. Hold on one second. So I have a cup of oats here and a tablespoon of chia seed. Everybody remember chia from when there were the chia pets? That's exactly what it is, the little chia seeds. But what happens to oats and chia when you add liquid to them is they kind of expand. And so then it's just like a cooked oat, but you're going to put it in the fridge instead. So we're going to put that in there, and then we're going to add, in addition to that, our milk. So you could use a plant-based milk, like I use oat milk a lot, or almond milk, or you could use skim milk because it is fat-free. So we're going to stir that up, and I decided to make this one first just to give it a chance to thicken up a little bit. So if I was to put this in a jar, and usually what I do is then I just put them in a pint-sized mason jar. But if I put it in there now, you can see how liquidy it is. But by the time I'm done with these other two things, it will have become a lot more, what am I trying to say? Like it will have absorbed the liquid a little bit. So Leah's doing our peanut butter. And while she's doing that, I'm going to go ahead. So it calls for 2 cups of strawberries that are chopped up. So you're going to chop, that's going to be what your jam is. And then you're going to add half of the maple syrup. So about 1.5 tablespoons of maple syrup to this. And this will just give it a little bit of sweet flavor without adding like table sugar or anything like that. So it's less processed that way. Just here, bring it on. Okay, there we go. So you can see it's more like a smooth peanut butter. Oopsie, there we go. Once it's stirred up. So I think, hold on one sec. We're going to put half of the peanut butter and half of the maple syrup into here too, to give it a little extra flavor. There we go. We'll put our maple syrup in there and stir that up. And then I'm just going to let it set for a moment and do the other two. You can see how much thicker it is already. All right. And then what we'll do is we'll alternate layers between this, and then we'll even put a little bit of extra peanut butter on top. But we're going to come back to that one. Okay, now the next thing I want to make is the smoothie bowl. So this, some of you said you like spinach, so that's great too. So we're going to put the spinach in there. I already have it in, and then with the spinach, we're going to add in our frozen fruit, which makes it creamier. So this is mango, so I'm just going to put that in. Yeah, and then we're going to put banana in there too. Oops. I measured it and then put it in a cup. There we go. All righty. All right. So all I did, you guys, this morning is I took the banana that was, as you can see, very ripe. The more ripe it is, the sweeter it will be. I just popped it on in there. So I'm going to peel off the peel and then pop it in there too. So this makes 2 of the smoothie bowls as well. There we go. And then we're going to add a little milk to it. And just blend it and then pour it in the bowl and then add more fruit to it. All right, let me get the top. So again, here you could, again, just like with the other, you could use your favorite milk. If you're using dairy milk, I would just recommend that you use non-fat. Now, Leah's brother, it's funny because he was never a vegetable eater, and more recently, he has started. I'll put this up a little bit for a moment. Oops, sorry, I lost the, sorry. There. And so he just started doing smoothies, and he's getting 4 fruits and vegetables a day and doing it that way. There we go. All right. This will take seconds. All right, so there's your smoothie. So you could do this in back up. Or maybe I'll put it down. Put it down like that. That way you guys can see me put it together. So you could do this in a bowl. You could also just do it in a cup if you wanted to. Although if you're going to do that, you might want to blenderize the other fruits that we're going to add. So we're going to pour our smoothie in here, which is going to be my lunch, by the way. And then we're going to add some blueberries. And then I'm going to put in a little bit of kiwi. And then we're going to put some slivered almonds in there too. Give you a little bit of protein. If you wanted more protein in your smoothie bowl, you could use some non-fat Greek yogurt. And then we're using hemp seed. So hemp seed is high in protein. It's also got omega-3 and 6 in it. And there's your smoothie bowl, guys. All right. So the last very simple recipe we're going to do, which I joke about. This is Leah's favorite thing, right? Okay, so we're going to use dates, and a lot of people are not familiar with dates. As a matter of fact, my son came upstairs this morning and he goes, that looks disgusting. So they don't look pretty, but they taste good, right? So this is pumpkin pie bites, or pumpkin pie. I always say that, pecan pie. And all you're going to do, so one thing I want to show you. So you can buy dates that have the pit in them, or they may not have the pit. I will tell you, these are medjool dates. And you can get medjool dates at Aldi's year round. It's the one place I know they always have it. So this is one that has not been pitted. So I just made a little sliver. See the pits in there? And you just pick it up and then you're good to go. So with this, all you're doing, and it could not be any simpler, is you're putting a little pecan in there, right? And honestly, Leah, what do you like about these?
Satisfies my dessert.
There you go. It satisfies her sweet tooth for dessert. So that is easy peasy. All right. So that is that. So we have, right? We have these. These aren't done yet. I'm just going to put them there. We have our smoothie bowl. Where'd that go? And then I'm going to real quick put this together for you. And I didn't know if people had questions, just to try to keep people on time. I can put this together while we answer any questions.
Okay, we do have a question.
Wonderful.
I have a question about one of the other recipes in your booklet, the edamame spread. Have you ever
Yeah.
tried freezing and thawing individual portions of it?
Oh, after you make it, you mean?
I'm assuming so.
Okay. I have not tried to freeze and thaw it because usually it does not last for very long in my house. But it
Good
should be
answer.
okay. I would think it would be okay because you're just going to stir it up when you're done.
Yeah. Are there any, if anybody does have questions or, comments or thoughts about the recipes, or I think most of you did receive the recipe book. If for some reason you didn't get it, you can let us know and we will send it to you. We did send it out to everyone who was registered, but you can let us know. Any questions? Did you find this helpful? I'm just curious, Becca, if you want to throw up that other poll, we wanted to ask everybody just your thoughts on if you're going to try to incorporate more plants into your diet. So can you let us know, do you plan on trying to incorporate more plants? %94 so far, Kathy, are saying yes.
That's great. Yeah. Because the more plants, the better, guys. Like I said, there's nothing that will hurt you about eating more plants. So look, I like that 95%. That's excellent.
Yes, I do too. This has been something I've really wanted to do for quite some time. And I just thought I'd share with all of you. I try to do the only eat meat a couple of times a week.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of been my plan. And I, definitely try not to have any meat like for lunch. If I know I'm going to have it for dinner, then I try to not have it for lunch. And so that I think if you just take it in baby steps, I think that is helpful. So
right. And I think with nutrition and lifestyle change in general, it's always that way. I believe in the small step approach where you just pick one thing to work on, focus on that one thing. Inevitably, your brain is going to tell you it's not enough, but it is. And so you work on that one thing until you get that accomplished, and then you go to the next thing. And like on the screen, how it says it's a marathon, right? Not a sprint. So it's something that you will find that you'll be doing well, and then you will go backwards. That's okay. That's normal, and the other thing that I have on there too is to remember that everybody's journey is different. Right? Just because so-and-so did it this way and they're being what in your head, what is more success, it does not mean success, right? Everybody's definition of success is different too. And trying just to incorporate small, tiny changes at the end of the day, using recipes that are like family favorites. I have this, my great Aunt Bessie used to make pumpkin bread every Thanksgiving. And so I have tweaked that thing over and over and over just to give it kind of a twist of healthy to it. So, and just remembering too, right? And this is my mantra, that it's all about progress, not perfection at the end of the day. So, yeah.
We have, the presentation was very helpful, especially the 6 pillars of health, being that we're on so many medications and physicians don't know that much about holistic health practices.
Yeah, no, it's huge. Well, I mean, I've seen it change. I've been a dietitian this year, 31 years. So what I learned about lifestyle medicine, I'm not kidding you, I did not know till 5 years ago. So it's not something that's taught in medical school or in college for dietitians or any other kind of health provider. And so hopefully, because I am involved in the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, part of my goal is to get that information out to more dietitians so they understand it better and then can support patients better that way too. If anybody's ever interested in plant-based, I do have a free Facebook group called Plant-Based Simply. Jump in there. I do have, because I believe that you have to have all the things in your house. So when it comes time to make a recipe, you have the items. I have a little freebie that's called the Plant-Based Pantry Basics Guide, and it just helps make sure your pantry's stocked. Like for me to do these 3 recipes, I only had to buy one thing because I had everything else in my house already. So yeah, no, it makes a difference. And I did put a little, hold on, let me go to there. If anybody wants to get to any of that information easily, I made this QR code where if you aim your camera on your phone at it, it will take you straight to a page that will help you get to any of my social media or anything like that too.
Couple more, Kathy, this